we're going to show you on this video is a thing that I call having your dog's brain. It is really important when you're on your walk with your dog that you really make sure that while you're on that walk you have your dog's brain and he's not busy doing other things, because if you are expecting him to heel, to stop and sit when you stop, to stay, to not lunge out after those things that are coming by, and you want to be able to have control of him, you really need to have your dog's brain, and he needs to be able to understand that his responsibility is to you, not the environment around him. Now, all the time in our life, we have to do many different things, right? When we drive, we have to pay attention to the traffic around us. We listen to the radio. Sometimes we talk on the phone when we shouldn't, but we do have that ability. Texting, we don't. If we get too focused on something, which texting requires a lot more of your brain power, it is way more difficult, right? That's why it's dangerous to text. But there is a certain level of things that we can do while taking care of a separate task. Now, I have my 1-year-old out here, and I wanted to show you that there is a limit in regard to the age. If you have a puppy, like we have a 1-year-old child here, for me to get his attention to tell him stuff, it's going to be way more difficult because he is so small in his brain's maturity and what he is able to understand. And I can't necessarily tell him, hey, don't be doing that, I'm busy talking on a camera. He's doing his thing. He's a 1-year-old. But as they get older and become more mature, like these dogs that are going to be shown in this video, we have a little bit greater expectation. All right, so watch this video so you understand a little bit more of what I mean about having your dog's brain and not allowing them to get too caught up in other situations. In other words, being on the internet or texting while they're walking. All right, so enjoy this aspect. I'm going to pop in because there's a little thing I want you to see, and it'll prove my point why it's important to have your dog's brain. All right, here you go.
All right, so as we move forward, what I'm noticing right now is that there's a lot of dogs' noses on the ground as we're walking. They will walk a little bit, put their nose on the ground. Some dogs are actually tracking as they go. My philosophy in this is the dog's nose is on the ground is much like somebody's face being in Facebook or on websites that are taking their attention away from other stuff, right? Businesses are losing thousands upon thousands of dollars of money because their employees are busy doing stuff on the internet that they shouldn't be doing. That's kind of like what your dog's doing in obedience. When you're walking, your dog has his nose and is surfing on the internet of the grass, trying to figure out who's been here. They can't pay attention to you. And it's like my son yesterday. He's watching something on TV, and I go, son, I need you to help me with the 1-year-old. And I go, son, I need you to help me with the 1-year-old. And I go, hey. And he what? Were you talking to me? Yeah, I was like 4 feet away from you. That's exactly what the dogs are doing. So how can the dogs be focused on that and focused on you at the same time? They can't. Right? So especially with the beagle, really hard. Those are ground sniffing dogs, right? And we've talked about this before. And I noticed that you actually were doing very well. You were doing better. We have a couple of dogs, they're just on the ground, and they're just being dogs, right? They're just being animals that were their brains were developed to find stuff on the ground to either reproduce, which is find other dogs and of the opposite sex, right? And they're also trying to find things that will give them food, right, and stay alive. And that's just genetics. So you're battling against genetics, which is not that easy. But you can do it. If we want true obedience, we have to make sure our dogs are thinking about us and what it is that we're doing. Because a dog should be listening to our foot speed, paying attention with their peripheral vision on where we're at and all that kind of stuff. But they can't do that with their nose on the ground. So all that to say, when your dog goes to put his nose on the ground, just a little bit of a pop on that leash will be enough to get a nose off the ground. And it seems like you're going to be doing this a lot in the very beginning. Like, gosh, I'm constantly correcting my dog. But if you do it appropriately and at the right time, the dog will eventually just pick his nose up off the ground. How you know you have it is when you see your dog start to put his nose on the ground and he stops himself. And you go, I got it. The dog knows I don't want him to sniff the ground. But it's going to be tough, right? It's going to be tough not to for the dog not to go, take a real quick sniff. And so that's the first thing I noticed right off the bat. If we're going to get advanced training to where you want to be able to call your dog from a distance, you don't want them to be distracted by the environment. So it starts with heeling. and making sure your dog's nose is on the ground. Because if he's going to be distracted when he's this far away, he's going to be distracted when you're that far away, right? And not have you on his mind. All right, so let's try to work on at least that for right now. Forward. There you go. About turn. Nice, that was good. Try not to pull their head up and give them a correction to let them know that they're doing something wrong. About turn. And stop. Good. So that was perfect. A good correction. You pulled your dogs up off the ground, right? There's a difference, right? When your dog puts his nose on the ground, you want to tell him, stop doing that. It's just a simple correction. He feels on his neck really quick. When you pull your dogs up, head up off the deck, that was a correction. Perfect. When you're pulling your dog's head up, you're not telling him what he's doing is wrong. He just feels like, well, she must be moving, she must be turning, she must be doing something else. It's not telling him what he's doing is wrong, right? Dogs also have an opposite reaction to pressure. So if they feel you pulling up, they're going to try to pull down. So that's going to be, again, be the opposite of what you're trying to tell them. And so the correction is simply that communication to them that what you're doing that second, I don't want, right? And that's all that is. So that one you just did was ideal. Forward. Left turn. Nice. Ah, he caught himself. Good. About turn.
All right, sorry to break in, but what I want you to watch for is the black dog that's in front, the black German Shepherd named Natiri. As she and her handler are coming into the screen, or coming towards the screen, you're going to see at the moment, just a little bit before I say stop, you're going to see the dog's looking back over its shoulder to see the dog that's behind it. There's a dog that's behind her that she's kind of interested in. Either she's worried about the dog or she's just kind of interested in that dog. And what she's doing, her brain completely goes to that subject. All right, so it could be anything, but in this case, it happens to be another dog, right? So you're going to see what I'm talking about. When the dog is completely focused on something else, it cannot pay attention to what the handler's doing. In our training, what we teach from the basic, the intermediate, to the advanced is that when you stop, that is the command to sit. So watch what happens when this handler stops. She stops and the dog is so focused on something else, you'll see that it's impossible for the dog to do more than focus on what it has its attention on, and it's not focusing on the handler.
Nice, nice. And stop. Good.
So you see, when the handler stopped, she had to go physical with the dog in order to get the dog's attention and get the dog to actually sit. So that's what I'm talking about. If the dog was focused on the handler where it should have been, when the handler stopped, because this dog has been through our training, the dog would have sat upon stopping, which you see it do in other parts of the video. But I really wanted you to see that point, that it really is impossible when a dog turns its full attention onto something else, how it cannot be focused on the handler, that the handler does not have the dog's brain. So there is a perfect example of what it is I'm talking about. So the process that I'm putting these handlers through in teaching them to train their dogs to pay attention to them no matter what's going on in their environment, no matter what it is they're smelling that's coming off of the ground, that there has to be some portion of their attention focused on the handler, this is the exact reason why. All right, here we go. Back to the video.
Good. Going in line with one another sometimes is helpful because the dog is so busy smelling the air that's in front of them, coming off the dog that's in front of them, right? So their head's kind of like, again, surfing the internet, trying to get as much information. I love that the web is out because now I could use that as an analogy. It's because it's perfect, right? The dog is like trying to get all the info. He's Googling the air for what this dog is all about in front of him. Forward. About turn.
Googling the air. Do you mind if I steal that?
Googling the air, yeah. I just made that up. Left turn. Oh, my voice is changing. About turn. And stop. No, oh, just that very last second, something caught his her attention. Nice. That looks really good. Much, much better than how we first started. Right. So again, I know, just a reminder, I advised you that we'd be starting with the very, very basics, but we can't get to the big stuff unless we make sure and cover all the little small things. The issue with making sure you have your dog's attention is the key to just about everything. Because when you speak, when you move, you want the dog's attention to go to you because it's important. What most people have, and why there's only 4 of you here as opposed to 20, is that it takes work and it takes time. Just like it does with people with their kids. You know the people that don't take time with their kids when you sit next to them in a restaurant, right? And they say, no, stop that. What are you doing? And the child or the dog is running around the restaurant and they're going, stop that, Johnny, stop that, Johnny. And the child keeps on ignoring them, right? It takes work and people get distracted. I remember sitting in a restaurant not too long ago, an Italian restaurant down the street, and this father was on his phone during the entire lunch. He was with his 6-year-old, 7-year-old son the entire time. And you could tell the kid didn't have a device. He was sitting there and it just was sad, right? He did not have, couldn't take the time to spend lunch with his son and have a conversation. But that's where we're at, right? And so the dogs need to have a reason to pay attention to you. But it takes work.